Welcome to Pat's Papers. I'm Pat Kiernan. Our top story today is from Washington. Big news in all the papers, bigger than the president on Leno, was the vote in the House to slap punitive taxes on bonuses paid to executives whose companies received federal bailout money. The Washington Post reports on the front page that those who received big bonuses will surrender 90% of their payments if this special income tax goes through. The Post warns, though, that this could backfire if banks decide to back out of the government rescue programs. The New York Times also leading with the story, acknowledging questions about the legality of the tax. The Times says this was the quickest way for lawmakers to show angry Americans that Congress intended to recoup the extra dollars. The Senate is considering a different approach to this issue, though, so it may take a while to work out a compromise bill. In the Post, columnist Steve Pearlstein says, let's keep our attention on the elephant rather than the pimples on its behind. He says Americans ought to be concentrating on the hundreds of billions of dollars in taxpayer funds that have been put at risk rather than to get too wrapped up in this bonus controversy. The New York Post expresses its displeasure this morning with the president's decision to do the interview with Jay Leno last night. The headline on the front page is "No Joke, O yucks it up on Leno as economy burns." The New York Daily News is also expressing that viewpoint this morning, though in a more subtle way. The headline on the column on the left side page by Josh Greenman is, "Isn't there a country to rescue?" Trivial or not, I got a kick out of the headline in the Wall Street Journal, the clever headline, "From Bad Bank to Burbank." The interview with Jay Leno was not all about the financial crisis. Chicago Tribune writer Peter Nicholas says Obama also mentioned his unfulfilled campaign promise. That's the one to get a White House family dog. And he talked about his NCAA tournament favorites. To Colorado, the one newspaper town of Denver, one of the things the president wants to spend money on is infrastructure. Today, the Denver Post looks at just how bad the plumbing is in some Colorado neighborhoods. And the story in the Post says economic stimulus spending will not be nearly enough to fix all the problems around the country. Sarah Palin back in the news in Alaska for refusing 30% of the state's stimulus money. The Anchorage Daily News says the Alaska governor will accept money for construction projects, but she's refusing some funding for programs on the grounds that that spending would just make government bigger. USA Today this morning says it's been a tough job market, and that's hit Iraq and Afghanistan veterans hard. The jobless rate in that group has risen 4 percentage points to 11.2%. Faced with little hope for a job away from the military, some of them are making the difficult decision to re-enlist. Photojournalism is all about capturing the moment. The Cleveland Plain Dealers photographer Scott Shaw was on hand for Match Day. This is the day when 30,000 medical students learn where they will work for their residency. Eddie Jones and Teresa Shear pictured here. They seemed more than content with their assignment to go to Colorado. Here's what Charles Manson looks like these days, a new photo from the state prison where he's locked up in California at the age of 74. The New York Daily News says a shaggy-haired murderer has morphed into a senior citizen. Lexus took a back seat in the latest J.D. Power and Associates quality rankings. Coverage in the Kansas City Star of the auto survey says Jaguar and Buick are tied for first in quality. Lexus has occupied the number one spot in the rankings for as long as it has existed. Suzuki owners reported the most problems of any make in the survey. They crowned a winner in Wisconsin yesterday, 1,360 entries from 32 states in what the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel says is the Super Bowl of cheese. After wins in recent years by New York and Indiana cheesemakers, the title came home with a Wisconsin winner. Millie Hinkle wants the nation to know the wonders of camel's milk. A story in the News and Observer in Raleigh says these are animals that are cantankerous and illegal to ship across state lines, but the local booster Hinkle says camel's milk may be an elixir and could cure anything from autism to diabetes. Finally, the White House is getting a little greener. The Washington Post spinning the shovel-ready designation for infrastructure projects into a headline about the new White House vegetable garden. Michelle Obama's garden would be the first since Eleanor Roosevelt's Victory Garden. Each weekday we thin it out so you don't have to. You can find links to all of these stories on the main page at our website.